A semi-final for the ages. 2 days of drama in Manchester that diminished the dream for India this World Cup, that give New Zealand, who hold their nerve for the 4th time in the tournament, for the 2nd time in Manchester, en route to a 2nd successive World Cup final. And guess who did it? Martin Guptill did, who hadn't got a run all tournament and then manages to run MS Dhoni out after Ravindra Jadeja played the fighting innings of his life. That after New Zealand blocked and blocked and blocked on day one of this dramatic semi-final to take them to 239 for 8, a total that would eventually be 18 too many for the might of India, who are now knocked out of the tournament. What a day for New Zealand cricket. Dan Vettori knows what it feels like to make it to a World Cup final. He can feel on behalf of his team, Ross Taylor and Kane Williamson putting together some mighty valuable runs now on a day where India were rattled and their backs broken at 5 for 3, courtesy Matt Henry and Trent Bolt. Jadeja with 77 of 59 balls, a partnership of 116 for the 7th wicket when India seemed down and out. MS Dhoni, India's grand old man, nearly put another feather in his cap. And eventually, it is New Zealand that prevail on the day. We're going to look back at that semi-final that had so much incident over 2 days on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday UK 2019. Ajit Agarkar is here, calm, under pressure as he always is. Daniel Vettori would look the same no matter New Zealand win or lose, but inside is jumping up and down or something to that effect.
Just more because of the performance. It was an amazing game of cricket. I think no one expected New Zealand to fight that hard. I think they were almost ridden off, and there's so many heroes for the New Zealand team, a couple of near heroes for India as well. But I think New Zealand will reflect back on how well they bowled first up. They were almost perfect in those first 5 to 6 overs, and that set up the victory.
Has the game ended right there? New ball, 5 for 3.
Not with India's sort of longish batting. They still, you always felt, because the runs weren't enough. I don't think 240 was enough. That's why New Zealand had to get early wickets, which they did. Got Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma out, which they did, and then just kept putting pressure. I think at some stage you always felt India were a little bit behind the rate, but Jadeja just played the innings of his life. Yeah. It's just unfortunate that it ended up on the losing team.
You called at halftime that New Zealand would have to have the best bowling day of their life. In what we saw from Trent Bolt and Matt Henry with the new ball, in what we saw from Mitchell Santner going at a run and over for the first 7 overs, do you say this has been their best all-round bowling performance you've seen in a while?
I think the execution was exceptional, but the pitch allowed them to do that as well. I think we're going to reflect back on Ross Taylor and Kane Williamson's innings, and we thought they looked stuck at times and how well
Might even be at a harder time for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, so, I mean, they soaked up a lot of pressure to get New Zealand through to that total, and they, to give them credit, they read the wicket better than anyone. So they bowled exceptionally, and the conditions allowed them to be even better.
Okay, how much did India's tactics cost them in terms of either shot selection at the top, batting order positions? Where would you allocate or allot the proportionate blame?
Yeah, a little bit surprised that they batted MS Dhoni in a game of 240 as low as they did, because he likes to take his time. We've seen time and again. And today was an ideal situation. Perhaps should have come after Rishabh Pant. Whether it's an admission of where his game is at, we don't know. I mean, Virat Kohli probably will answer that question better. But to come after Rishabh Pant, Hardik Pandya and Dinesh Kartik, to me was a little bit surprising. I think he can soak that pressure up at that point. If and it's not as if he at least tries to rotate the singles. His strike rate might not be great. So I perhaps missed a trick. Well, it's the early wickets. We've seen time and again if the top order doesn't fire, India generally struggles, which New Zealand did very well.
Yes, Dan.
And I thought Rishabh Pant and Hardik Pandya, I think you can critique them in 2 ways. I thought that the way they played was right on the money. Their dismissal was the thing that always people talk about. So the way they built their innings, I thought they showed some calmness and control, but obviously the pressure was getting to them, and 2 shots that they probably regret.
It's almost like they did the hard work of getting in, but they can't hold back that natural instinct.
Or Rishabh Pant,
but you can understand that?
Yeah, I mean, Rishabh Pant, he looked fantastic. Incredibly difficult for him to come out when he did. Bolt and Henry bowling so well, and he looked calm, controlled, left well, defended well, and then I suppose left arm spinner versus left hand batsman, you get a little bit excited, and that's what happened.
In Hardik Pandya's defence though, Santner had bowled 5 overs for 5 runs at that point. So somewhere he had to take chance. That's the shot that he plays. Santner was good enough on the day to not let him do that. So, yeah, he might probably not enjoy that where India ended up with just 18 shot. But I think that it was there for try. He had to take a chance at that point because India was stuck.
Yeah, he played his part, Mitchell Santner, who we have referred to on this show as poor man's Dan Vettori, but those aren't my words. Those are Graeme Swann's, and you'll be hearing from him in just a bit. But Ajit Agarkar makes the point that India's top three, when they get out cheaply, it tends to go pear-shaped from there. And in spite of the fight that we saw today from Ravindra Jadeja, in spite of the fight that we saw from Hardik Pandya a couple of years back in London, this is a pattern which India will now have to look at. There were always going to be some vulnerabilities, some questions asked of the middle order, and when looking at the top three going down within the first 10 overs, it was Shikhar, Rohit and Kohli on that day, it was Rahul, Rohit and Kohli today, and eventually it's resulted in an India defeat in a major knockout ICC game. Right, there are plenty of places that we'd still like to elaborate on. We've spoken on the importance of the top three against the new ball that New Zealand were exceptional at. The batting order where Dhoni was kept towards the end. Jadeja going at a strike rate which just eclipsed MS Dhoni completely. So Alexis Nunes, you've already got plenty you can take forward with Murali, Kartik and Graeme Swann. Let's see what the thoughts are on where India possibly lost this and where New Zealand have taken it from them. All yours.
Thanks so much, guys. Well, the clouds have come over. It is once again grey and cold that Kartik and I have had to put our jackets back on here because I can only describe the atmosphere as fireworks at a funeral. There were fireworks going on at Old Trafford as soon as New Zealand booked their spot in that final, but there was not a chair in sight. There were pockets of New Zealand fans, and God bless them, because they were trying to scream as loud as they could, but it still could not drown out just that sense of despair from the India fans. You will see the glum faces, not these guys because they're hanging in there, but there are lots of glum faces that are walking by us, and that pretty much sums up exactly how it has been for India today. But what a semi-final we have had. Definitely worth the 2 days that we came back for it and us coming in dirty close except for Swann. Kartik, I have to come to you first because when the chase started, we set it and you guys set out the blueprint for New Zealand, how they should approach this, and that was go after them with an all-out pace. If you can dismiss 1, 2, 3 batsmen, which happen to include an informed Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, then it should be cruising there for New Zealand. But that is always easier said than done. So how did New Zealand just execute it so perfectly?
Yeah, just really good bowling just to get Rohit Sharma off an absolute peach. And then Virat Kohli is always someone who's been susceptible to the one coming in, and the way he was set up by Trent Bolt was outstanding because he does feel for the ball outside the off stump and just dragged him and then bringing a couple of balls in and just breaching his defense because he's somebody who whips the ball really nicely on the onside, just the way he was set up. And again, could KL Rahul have missed it? Possibly he would have missed it if he was set, but when things are happening and not going your way, then then these things don't happen. So to be 5 for 3 or 3 for 5, whichever way you put it, I think that was game, set and match. Because after that, you're always hoping for a miracle to happen, which could have happened in the form of the way Dhoni and Pandya batted. Yeah, you're always going to question, could Dhoni have come? I completely agree with Ajit. I think he could have come ahead of Dinesh Karthik because we've seen him do this before in seaming conditions in India, Dharamshala. He's gone and soaked up the pressure and batted beautifully. So he's somebody who could have done that. But Rishabh Pant, I thought, played really well. I thought he really played well, but unfortunately for him, I think that impetuousness at the wrong time cost him his wicket. All in all, you have to give credit. And Dan, really sorry, all due respect back to you. India did want to face New Zealand, but we have to go back home now.
All right, well, before we get into more of India's middle order, I'm sure you definitely want to touch on that point as well. Let's go to Swanny too, because Swanny, you echoed basically what Kartik said on that one about going after India's top order batsmen. So how did New Zealand pull it off so effortlessly? Well, not effortlessly, but it looked like it at the start because they really started with a bang.
Well, the death knell was at 3 wickets. Top 3 batsmen all gone for 1 run. You're not winning games of cricket there. That 240 chase turns into a 320 chase. India did incredibly well to get to where they did, I thought. Pandya and Pant, I thought, batted really well. They had to start up in the tempo. They soaked up the pressure. People will get stuck in. Santner had bowled 5 overs for 5 runs. We said he'd do that. We said he'd create pressure. At that point, I texted Dan Vettori, said 10 overs from Dan Vettori now. New Zealand are home and hose. But Santner did the Vettori job perfectly. You have to take your hat off for Jadeja because India basically were nowhere near that game. They weren't even given a 5% chance of winning. Jadeja came out, played the innings of his life, almost pulled it off. And I know MS Dhoni will get a lot of stick for not batting as fluently at the other end, but I thought what he did was very clever, because if India had lost one more wicket throughout that partnership, at any point, that's game over. He knew that. He knew Jadeja was going well, and he did soak up a lot of pressure. Yes, as soon as Jadeja got out and he had to up the ante, he hit that 6, and then what happened? I told you that Martin Guptill would be man of the match. That run out alone, that was the death knell for India. That was the end of the game. New Zealand, you have to take your hat off to them. They slept overnight. I said this morning, a good day for batting. India would have thought about it. New Zealand came out and did everything right. Put the ball in the right place. Matt Henry, brilliant at the top. I don't know what Virat Kohli was doing, like questioning the decision. It was plum LB. He walks in front of a great bit of bowling, just obviously the strain of the situation. In New Zealand, take your hats off. They deserve to be in that World Cup final, where they're going to play England in that World Cup final. And I'm sorry, Dan, but there's only one winner.
Okay, we'll get back to there. Let's stick a pin just quickly in Mitch Satner, because I know you definitely will have something to say on how he bowled today. We were talking about some of his stats yesterday, saying that he was basically he was economical, but just not taking those key wickets when he needed to. So what did you make of his performance today, Kartik?
I think he bowled slightly fuller than normal than the Headingley time we're talking about, because sometimes on a surface which is gripping, if you bowl that back of a length, all you're doing is just missing the bat and possibly allowing the batsman to go and punch you to covers. If you're 5 for 5, you're bowling the right length, the right pace. Didn't allow. Somebody like a Rishabh Pant is always trying to feel bad for ball, just to keep him in check. And also Hardik Pandya, he can play a few shots. So just to keep them in check, and with the kind of lengths he bowled, also the pace was outstanding today.
The pace was outstanding indeed. And Swann, let's talk a little bit about India's middle order then, because we've heard Kartik go on and on about them in previous matches, saying that he definitely wants to see a bit more. I don't want to really compare them to the West Indies, but it's the same cry that I have with the West Indies middle order, in the sense that you see that instinct wanting to come and play the shots when you really need to just dig in deep. We almost saw Virat just seething up there watching them go for those shots. So what did you make of that performance?
You live by the sword, you die by the sword. These are attacking players who had to rein in all their natural instincts because of the situation they found themselves in.
So you kind of sympathise with them then?
1,000%. It annoys me a bit, especially these guys. By the very product of Rohit Sharma having such a stellar World Cup, they've not had the batting, the middle pressure situation practice that you actually need to be in great nick. If you're suddenly thrown in World Cup semi-final, the pressure is huge. You've ridden the storm, basically, gone from 3 early wickets, got back to a position where we have to up the ante. Yes, people will look at Pant and Pandya and say, oh, they were bad shots. They didn't execute their shots. Had they hit those balls out of the ground, people would say, brilliant, timed it perfectly. Yes, looking back, you just think, well, why didn't they try and hit a 4 rather than a 6? But you can't turn around and blame them completely. The game was lost by the top 3 batsmen who were there to negate new ball bowling, to not get out to it. 1-1-1, those top 3 got. One of those batsmen, if they've got 15-20, batted for 10 overs, they see off that new ball. They change the whole complexion of it. New Zealand were exceptional at the top. India losing those 3 wickets, you can't just have a dig at the Indian middle order. I know it's not the strongest on paper, and I know they underperform and have done in this World Cup. But just look at the whole thing as it was. New Zealand performed exceptionally. Jadeja nearly pulled off a miracle. He would have been, the greatest Indian on the planet had he won that game. New Zealand deserved to be in that final.
All right, thanks so much, guys. Well, there you go, Swanee once again saying, cut Rishabh Pant and Hardik Pandya a little bit of slack out here, given the situation and given the form that the top order has been in. So I suppose we'll go back to studio to see if Ajit kind of, wants to cut them some slack as well.
I'm sure he will. You guys are going to head to Birmingham now to make sure you make it in time. Swanee's going to have to play Kartik's role in 24 hours from now, perhaps, and talk about the loss of his side after a World Cup semi-final. But anyway, Ajit,
I just defended Hardik Pandya.
Yes, you did.
I said the shot was on.
So let's pick up the conversation on exactly where it's left off from there. And MS Dhoni's innings will come under scrutiny. But there's a good point made by Graeme Swann. After him is Bhuvneshwar Kumar and the rest of the bowlers, given that he was batting with the last recognised batsman in Jadeja. And we're looking at how Jadeja went at one end, going at a strike rate of over 100, and MS Dhoni in the other. We look at the numbers of the partnership itself, the 7th wicket stand that nearly pulled off this heist for India in a semi-final. And what we're seeing is Ravindra Jadeja go 77 of 55 and MS Dhoni go 32 of 45. Now that's not so bad if you come to think of it. But if one batsman's going that way, Dan, and your required rate is around that 8-9 mark, and you're seeing Dhoni still nudge it around, leave it outside of, is that in some ways affecting the dynamic of the other batsmen too? And how much of the blame can be apportioned to Dhoni in that partnership?
I don't think it's apportioning blame. I think there's 2 parts that you obviously accept how well Jadeja batted. I think it was an incredible innings, and if it got India home, like Swanee said, it'd be the most popular Indian on the planet. I think the thing that's hard for people to take when they sit back and watch is that just the intent. Like, Dhoni is such a good player. He milks singles all the time. He walks at bowlers. He takes them on.
Yeah.
And possibly he only needed to do that 4 or 5 times in that partnership, and it would have made the partnership look completely different. But I take the point as well that when your partner at the other end is going so well, then you do take a step back. It's just whether you can take a step back with more singles and more intent.
He's hit the most extraordinary 6 over cover point of a tough ball towards the end of that innings. It's almost like, he's decided at that point he's going to hit. If he's capable of hitting that, wouldn't you want him to try his handle a bit sooner?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think especially later on in the innings, maybe earlier on they needed a partnership. That India looked down and out at that point, and then Jadeja came and played the way he did. Again, that's been the pattern of how MS Dhoni approaches his innings. Just keeps taking it deep. I know he has the confidence, but at the moment, does he have the ability? I'm not sure to finish it off on his own. I know it took a brilliant piece of work from Guptill. Yeah. Otherwise, you probably would have put a lot more pressure on Neesham in the last over, even if there was 20 required. But to leave it that late, again, there's always been question marks. He's done it a lot of times in his career, but in recent times, on his own, he's found it a little bit difficult. So perhaps every now and then, just to give a little bit more support. I know Jadeja was doing the job, but there were lots of times, where there were probably hittable balls, which he has, enough capability to deal with it, but chooses not to early on.
Okay, now if you look at that MS Dhoni innings, you might want to say, and there's a significant amount of scrutiny that will come into that game. But let's be fair, he's taken his time at the start, which a lot of Indian batsmen have. Eventually the innings has ended at a strike rate of 70, which is exactly what a Ross Taylor or Kane Williamson went at for a large part. But I think we go back now to where this game was really broken for India, and that is the top order. That's where you're saying, this game was put beyond reach, or was it that it was still within reach with the middle order and a little more change, a slight change in decision making? It could have gone either way.
Once again, there's 2 parts to it. I think there's the losing the 3 wickets is incredibly difficult, particularly Sharma and Virat Kohli, who have been so successful in the tournament. But it's the pitch that doesn't allow the stroke play, and it allows the bowlers to come more and more into it. And I mean, Dinesh Kartik took, I think, 20 balls to get off strike.
What explains Jadeja's innings then at a striking of 100?
But he came in, I think, with the mentality of just going for it, and he put pressure back on the bowlers and made it difficult for them, so they couldn't actually just run up and bowl and expect to get away with it. And I think that's what we talked about with the New Zealand innings as well, that whilst it's still hard, you can still put some intent on the bowlers. And Jadeja displayed that perfectly. And whether that's a confidence thing or him just playing the same way, no matter what the situation is, it's a lot of credit to a batsman to be brave enough to do that in a World Cup semi-final when it's all on the line. I
mean, this is an incredible time to do it. But Jadeja's batting has improved over the last 12, 18 months. I think... so it's not a surprise that that's once in a lifetime sort of innings, but his batting's improved miles. That's why I always felt that he could have played at number 7 and India perhaps could have played another bowler. All
right, well, so many ifs and buts which tend to happen as your World Cup campaign comes to a close ahead of the final. But India have to now look forward beyond the World Cup. This is where we say goodbye to our viewers on ESPN Cricinfo. Viewers in the Caribbean, it'll be a very intriguing post-match conversation with Virat Kohli. Let's move to the presentation in Manchester, and we'll be back with thoughts from Dan, Ajit, Swann, Kartik and Alexis.